everybody, and welcome to Above and Beyond the Accessibility and Inclusion podcast live for Monday, January the 16th, 2023. Take four. Maddie, how are you?
A little less frustrated than I have in the last 11 minutes. Trying to figure out what caused that echo. Because we've been doing this is actually our 13th live that we've done together under the above and beyond umbrella. Yeah, so it was like 13 is the lucky number.
Right? And we just
Oh my
had
God.
Friday the 13th last week. So
So
maybe that's
technically
an
this one is
omen
the
for us.
fourth. Technically this now is our 14th because our 13th ended in trauma after 11 minutes. So this is now Facebook Live number 14. How you
Well,
doing?
I mean, we did try it. We did try it a couple times. So we could be at 16 right now.
No. We tried the live is live as long as we're on here, but when we hit end broadcast, we're dead. And then we get reborn again every time we do the Facebook Live. So here we are
Oh,
in our
Maddie.
14th
Oh.
incarnation of the. Well, this isn't a weather report, at least, which I tend to do.
Oh, Maddie, I,
Yeah.
I, I don't know what I don't know sometimes. You know,
Well, let's just start off. Let's go back to the beginning. You were about to give us some sad news of what's happened over this past weekend.
yeah. Unfortunately, former Lieutenant Governor David Onley passed away on Saturday evening, and I, for one, Maddie, to be honest with you, I'm gutted by this news. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet him in person. I have on a few occasions. Um, Maddie, I'll start with you. I don't know. Have you had the opportunity to meet
No,
former
I
Lieutenant
I,
Governor
I
David
haven't
Onley?
I haven't met him. I just know of his reputation. I know of the the real push towards um, just changing perspectives on for people that people had towards disability and accessibility. So I never got the opportunity to meet him or be part of anything that he was doing, but I certainly was aware of of his role before, during, and after his time as the Lieutenant Governor General here in Ontario.
Yeah, I've honestly met former Lieutenant Governor David Onley, Honorable David Onley, on a few occasions. The first being in 2007. He came to Hamilton uh, and was part of the Catholic Youth Organization's children's fundraiser and gala dinner. And I remember being awestruck by who he is. And I'm not ready to use past tense at this point. But meeting Honorable David Onley was was my first uh, glimpse of meeting a giant in the accessibility community. He pioneered, trailblazed, and a lot of, as you alluded to, Maddie, spoke up for people with disabilities, to the community at large. So the impact that he's had on me over the years, I honestly, I mean, I'm supposed to be a speaker, but I really can't put it into words. I had the opportunity to meet him again a few years later at a following subsequent dinner, and just being in that room with him, he commanded a wonderful presence, and he was always there to listen to you, and he took the time to listen to you and have that conversation with you. And from the perspective of, it was just you and him, there was nobody else around. He really took the time to consult with you, coach you, help you strengthen your abilities to be an advocate and to be an activist. I'm eternally grateful for that, and um, the pinnacle being last year on Cable 14. I actually had the opportunity to interview him. I just took a shot at sending him an email saying, "Would you be interested in being on the show?" He literally replied within a couple hours and took me up on the invitation. So last year we actually had the opportunity to do this interview, and I reached out to Cable 14, and I have the that interview that I did with him last year, and I'm going to be putting that on my social media. So Maddie, I'd appreciate it if you can share it with me as well. Really, that was one of the shining moments for me on Cable 14. And this interview was through another TV show called The Hamilton Network. And, it was a piece thrown to me about speaking about accessibility. I mean, I still had Above and Beyond, and that still was in existence, but I literally just, did this piece for one of their other flagship TV shows. And, looking back on that now and reflecting back on that, I'm just grateful that he gave me the time and the space and the peace to do this with him and to be very present and humble, and like you said, Manny, he really took the time to be with you and give you his time authentically and genuinely. He was a force, or sorry, he is a force in the accessibility and activism community for people with disabilities. But he did so in such a way that he wanted to give and shed limelight on the concept of working together, the concept of allyship, the concept of, knowing people with disabilities are not just people with disabilities. We're people too. We're here to exist, and we're here to make an impact. And we just need the opportunity. And he was one of the first people to give me that opportunity, and give me tips and pointers toward garnering that opportunity that would come a few years later with Cable 14. So that's just my long-winded diatribe on former Lieutenant Governor David Onley. Rest in peace, my friend. Rest in peace.
He leaves a legacy, and the reason he leaves a legacy is because of of his generosity of time and effort, and really pushing pushing the society around us to see us, accept us, support us, accommodate us. Um, you know, it's a life pattern to model to model from. I mean, um I can only hope that I have a fraction of the legacy that he leaves.
That's well said. I remember David Onley as a journalist on City TV, on City Pulse 24, and then venturing into politics. His governorship of Ontario was groundbreaking, because that's when the whole accessibility movement really started to gain traction with his leadership as lieutenant governor in 2007. And then for me, having that opportunity to meet him and learn from him, I am forever grateful for that. And speaking about David Onley, his legacy, among many things, is the Onley Report. The third review of the AODA, and he really, I'm at a loss for words, Maddie, so I'm just going to say it like this. He really laid it into the AODA in the sense that, and it's something that you've talked about, something that I've talked about, is that it has no teeth. The fact that his legacy with the Onley Report is giving it teeth, giving it some more oomph behind it. Let's call it.
Yeah.
Giving it that what it deserves. The AODA, and I've said this before, and I'm not afraid to say this on this live. The AODA is what denotes a minimum standard.
Yeah.
And everybody's striving for compliance when in actuality we should strive to exceed compliance. That's what I do. That's what you do, Maddie.
Yeah.
And to quote you, when you break down one barrier, subsequent barriers become more and more simpler to
Yeah.
break down. And that's what David Onley was
Yeah.
about.
And we talked about this last week that the AODA acts like a floor. Like it's the minimum, but without teeth, without any, just the concept of the bare minimum is just really a frustrating concept. Hiding behind the language of the AODA to make something seem acceptable and accessible. When the measure is, does it meet our needs, right? Does it meet our needs? Like it's okay to have a standard that's that meets our needs. You know, it'd be a better idea to have a standard that looks, to how we can thrive. But having our basic needs met should be the bare minimum. But when these minimum standards don't, and there's no enforceability to get them to be met, to be meet our needs, it's frustrating. And it's about time. Like the way that I read on Twitter. I mean, everybody has been remembering Mr. Only, Lieutenant Governor General Only. But when I hear politicians who have the power to make and enforce changes just commenting on his passing without actively trying to, you know if they feel that they should, note his passing, they should move towards implementing the things that he recommended, because otherwise it's just lip service. And we're we need the change that he spoke of to happen now. We need the attitudes shifted from maybe to will, and will to do.
Certainly. And we also need to look at it from an investment. More often than not, there's that famous C word that rears an ugly head around the disabled community, and that C word is, go for it, Maddie.
Um, I'm
Cost.
not getting it. What's that?
C
Oh
word is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
cost.
yeah. Oh yeah,
How much does that cost? And they seem to really shy away when the bill is no pun intended, but when the
yeah,
bill uh, is given. And it's as
yeah,
if people with disabilities, oh, they don't need that or they don't deserve that. But it's not about an advantageous standpoint. It's about an accommodation standpoint. And when you've met one person with a disability, you've met one person with a disability. And so I shake my head at the start stop. You said it before, Maddie. When does lip service become action? There's people like you. There's people like me. There's many people around the world uh, that have the desire to want to be included with integrity, dignity, and with respect. I mean, our last episode, and we're going to be posting it later, we had Brad Barco from Accessible by Design, and he really shed some interesting facts on about including people with disabilities. And one of his stories was when he was speaking to some people, they kind of shrugged their shoulders and was like, well, we didn't know that, we didn't know this, we didn't know that. that's something that I've been saying for decades. That's something you've been saying for decades, Maddie.
Yeah.
People with disability deserve to be in roles of leadership to help cultivate the fundamental systemic and culture change needed. You know, what
Yeah.
disability should not be a negative. You know,
That's right. I mean,
a disability should be an
disability is
opportunity.
a fact. Disability is a fact, and we experience internal challenges because of our conditions, but we experience the barriers that are around us that are uh, far more inhibitive of our ability to do things. And it so much of it, we've talked about this. So much of it is attitudinal. So much is the attitude um, about disability, about it's ableism is really what it is, where the being able-bodied is better or higher value than having some part of your body not function the way able-bodied people do. And like the basic premise that we really need to have the world move towards is that people with disabilities don't just have a right to live or survive, but we have a right to thrive. And it's not difficult. It's not cost, it's time, it's energy, it's attitude. We know, and we've talked about many times, that being inclusive from the start doesn't cost much, if anything at all. Designing new things to be accessible doesn't really cost more than, it actually costs less if you think about it, to design something inclusively than having to retrofit things later because you need to accommodate people that you didn't think that you would need to. Um, you know, you know, there is a cost for buildings to make things accessible, but it does not cost for process or time or the way you treat people that with I don't say autism, but because I talk about autism a lot because that's what I've been doing the last 4 hours because I'm autistic. Hey. But people with disabilities, it's to be accessible. It requires a bit of an attitude change. So it's a little bit of time and energy on your part to do so, but that's it. When you change the way you approach things, there's really no difference in time or energy after that point. And it's the same thing about, building things inclusively. So if our attitude changes away from people with disabilities as being less than other, need to be fixed, need to be covered, oh, pity them, pity them, pity them, to be, oh, people with disability have all kinds of things that insight in the way we do things that we hadn't thought of. They just need opportunity. So that what's getting in the way of that? Well, there's this barrier and this barrier. Well, let's focus on what we can do, and then let's ask them ask other people with disabilities what are other barriers that we're missing here. And those organizations that do that thrive because the attitude is
Is
inclusive, which
proactive.
means the small thing they do for one person opens up doors to people they didn't know, and the whole organization reaps the benefit of the small bit of change of attitude that started that process.
It is a domino effect, absolutely. And speaking to that point, Maddie, if you look at the doors opening for people with disabilities, it's a door open for everybody. People with disabilities are often willing to sacrifice time, volunteer time to be at the table,
Mhm.
whereas people who are there are obligated to be there and are getting paid to be at the table to listen to us.
Yeah.
So there's that little catch 22 behind it, giving us the autonomy and agency, integrity, dignity to speak,
Mhm.
but doing us a favor and actually listening to us, cultivating fundamental systemic and culture change. What former Lieutenant Governor David Onley broke ground on. It's the power of allyship. There's so many
Yeah.
people across Canada with his passion and desire uh, to be to be more accessible, more inclusive, to be treated with respect. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
going to correct one word you used. You said, do us a favor and listen to us. I'm going to say, give us respect by listening to us. Pay us for respect, all right? Because we don't want people doing favors. But we deserve the respect. We talked about this. We talked about this last week in our podcast. Where is it? We don't need charity. Our experience has value.
Yeah, exactly. The ability to network is much more valuable than what you can learn via a degree.
Yeah.
Your ability to utilize those resources around you by way of those with lived experiences of disability is far more valuable than what the AODA can provide, than what the Ontario Building Code can provide. And
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon you to take that abundance of talent and utilize that, because more and more people with disabilities will not strive to the minimum standard, will strive to exceed the minimum standard of what
Mhm.
legislation and code provides. And you're right, Matty. I did say do us a favor, but show us the respect by
Yeah.
giving us that opportunity at the table to create that fundamental systemic and culture change within your organization. And again, what you said, Matt, it's not charity. People with disabilities deserve to be paid for our lived experiences and for what we can provide to an organization. Uh,
Yeah.
it's it's just common sense, guys.
Yeah. And you've said many times, what we need is a hand up, not a handout,
Right.
because that's a hand up brings us to the level where you are, and that's again the power of allyship. What we really need is a bunch of people seeing the barriers, right? That are getting in the way of us being able to um, move ahead in life, or even sometimes to live and survive. When allies see barriers, when they focus on looking at the barriers around them, and even just tackle one, like uh, Anthony said earlier, you tackle one barrier. The effort, the most effort you're going to experience internally is helping break that first barrier. But when you've broken a barrier and you see the improvement of the lives of those who that barrier is blocking, there's so much um, power in that breaking the next barriers are again, it's the domino effect. They become easier and easier, and there are some that when we get closer to the real systemic barriers, they're hard. But the more you do it, and the more other allies do it, the more other people, you know, get rid of this notion that disability is a bad thing, that being disabled is something to fear. That having, that I wouldn't know if I was you, I wouldn't know what to do. I couldn't do anything if I was as disabled as you. All of these things, these attitudes, these attitudinal barriers, when we can build up enough people that don't have those barriers, that's when the last few barriers of ableism are going to break down. We're a ways from there. But again, look around you at find one barrier. I swear, if you're around a bunch of people, you spend a 5 minutes looking around, you're going to see a barrier. If you really just let go and look at, change your point of view, hunch down. What's at this level? Look at listen to the sound. What are the lights like? How's the layout of something? Can people get in the door? How's the bathroom? I swear there's barriers all around you, and you don't see it because you don't need to see it. But once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And that's what we want you to do. Act on the things that you can't unsee anymore.
Absolutely. And I want to say this respectfully, but you touched on it quite eloquently, Maddie. Bask in the fruits of your labor.
Mhm.
Essentially, seeing what your work as an ally can accomplish, not just for me, not just for you, but for so many. And it's not just for people with disabilities, it's for the community at large. Understanding that allyship is fundamentally the key to inclusion, because within our community, we know the situations, we know the the problem. We know the ableism. I'll go further and say the elitism, the gatekeeping, and
Oh
and
God.
and there's still attitudes, Maddie. I'm not going to speak for you, but in my world, there's a lot of attitudes where people are trying to strong arm people with disabilities in a
Yeah.
sense that their perception is not our reality. And I get that all the time. Um, but
Yeah.
it's about, creating that change. We're here. We're here to make an impact, Maddie, and that's really the strength behind it. Like, what we
Yeah.
do as
And
advocates and allies.
and a lot, this is the time right now to look back. We talked back during International Day with People with Disabilities. We looked at the past and the things that changed, the growth in the movement of disability rights, so that we had the convention, and we were pushing for adoption here in Canada. But it's people like former Lieutenant Governor General David Onley that helped paved the way for our ability today to talk about accessibility and inclusion with the we're not fighting for the concepts to be heard. We're now at the point where we're pushing and educating for these concepts to be in place. And we couldn't have done it without really strong advocates like Lieutenant Governor Onley.
Yeah, and we're not doing it like, and there's this concept of people that are trying to at least try to peg me as selfish because I'm an activist, an advocate for accessibility. What I'm doing is not for me; it's for the greater
Yeah.
good of community at large.
Yeah.
And whether you think that's selfish, then so be it. So be it. But it's not. It's really about our communities at large, putting together a voice and strengthening a voice that is courageous enough, that is strong enough to uh, battle those who think people with disabilities are less than. Think that people with disabilities are inferior to, when in fact, in reality, we are equal to. And the opportunities to be equal to are contingent on the plans being in place for for people with disabilities.
I was just having us visual image of the movie Mulan and the Make a Man Out of You, but I was thinking of, like, we're here to fight ableism instead of the Huns. It's the idea of all of us are trying, and it's a big fight. Um, and
For
it, yeah, attitude,
for
slicing attitude out of the mix. I really hope as a human race that
mhm.
we we see growth in looking at our own um, biases, at our own attitudes, because attitudes get in the way of logic and reasoning, and they create barriers so tight. And I wish people could just be free of that. And obviously, this is a completely pipe dream stuff. But every once in a while, you just I don't think as a kid, one of my um, the biggest strengths I had was my um, endless optimism. And I've lived through life. I've lived through experiences. Um, I know the world is not as ideal as I was hoping it would be as a kid. But I never lose hope. If I lose hope, I wouldn't advocate. And it's because I have hope for change, because I have a desire to change, because I don't want my kids experiencing the ableism that the world has given to me and others. Um, I have hope. It's a challenge, though. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge within oneself to find that hope and find that hope on a regular basis, and being able to use that hope to instruct. And you said it earlier, Maddie, when it comes to Lieutenant Governor General David Onley, that he's a man of legacy. His
Yeah.
desire for change and for inclusion and for accessibility comes down to people like us, to people like Maya and Ziv, to people like um, to David Lepovsky. There's so many strong Taya Kurdi, so many strong advocates for that change.
And allies
And
like
I get
Sherry.
it. Sorry?
And
Sherry.
allies like Sherry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sherry Caldwell. Passionate.
Absolutely.
And not taking no for an answer. When one door closes, we open another door. We find a way. What?
Yep.
And I always say this in my personal life. Like whenever I'm going shopping, for example, and I bring that bundle buggy with me, and I'm wheeling on my four-wheeler, my wheelchair, and I'm pushing the bundle buggy in front of me, and I get people looking at me, and I get people doing that old double take of like, how the heck is he doing that? And it may look unorthodox to an uneducated eye, but it's what I've got to do to preserve my independence.
Yeah.
And I tell people that. Yeah. They may think that I might need a hand, and it's appreciated, absolutely. But I find ways to make things work, just like you, Maddie. I'm sure that you find a way to make things work.
You fought the buggy monster and won because you keep them in front of you now. The bundle buggy monster.
All systems go. Yeah, right. It's the. That's good. Yeah,
but
that was good.
In all seriousness, I love people that ask, "Do you need assistance?" rather than say, "Let me help you," because in any situation, I'm very willing to accept help, but I also want to be as independent as I can. At some point, it gets to the point where there is no independence in this. I require help. So those that are ready to walk alongside me are great. It's the issue is those who want to insist they help you. They're not allies. They may think they're allies, but allies are those who offer the hand, not those who give the hand.
Yeah, it's we still deserve our agency as human beings.
Yeah,
and that's really I that's really what it's about. I had the pleasure a couple weeks ago, Maddie. I was at a mall, and I didn't have the bundle buggy with me this time, but I was just going through the mall doing my own thing, and this young family with this young daughter, all I hear is from behind me, "Oh, look, that's a wheelchair." So I took the time, and I stopped, and I had the conversation with the family, and I said, "Do you have any questions? My name is Anthony. I'm happy to have that conversation with you," because kids at a young age are really going to be the change makers for the future. So if we can educate them now, I think that's crucial for future development. And so we had the conversation. Did you have any questions? Do you want to know what this is? And this is how I push the wheelchair around. And you got to understand that there's different types of wheelchairs and different types of people with disabilities. I mean, I use different language than that, but I just took the time to have that conversation with the family, and they were grateful. So I mean, it's just taking that moment, that extra minute of your day to hopefully change somebody's life, and hopefully, give them something to remember you by.
Legacy happens while you live. by what you do, because if you didn't do the things, if you didn't have legacy while you live, you won't have legacy when you die. So we need to look to the path that Lieutenant Governor David Onley took. His legacy didn't begin this weekend. His legacy has been
No.
there for decades. And as I said before, I just want to, if I could have a fraction of his integrity and his work to be a legacy, I will be honored. And I do what I do to help other people. I do what I do to see a generation of people with disability thrive. And it's hard work. It's a slog. So many barriers, but I do it because I believe that we can see that world. And I it's thanks to again, it's thanks to the work of people like David Only that we have that opportunity to do that right now.
Absolutely. And his legacy is passed on to people like you, people like me, so that, when our time is up, that the future barriers are minimal than the barriers that we currently face.
Yeah.
And I think part of cracking the code is getting people to understand that when the future is accessible, when there's opportunity to amplify and promote and put accessibility in your framework, there's long-term benefits,
Mm.
because not only people will see what you do as an organization, as a business, as a community, but it'll have
Mm.
long-lasting effects on other people. Even me having that conversation with that young girl, I'm hoping that's
Yeah.
going to have a long-lasting effect
It's a seed.
on not only the
Yep.
young girl but the family as well.
It's a seed, and sometimes all the only opportunity we have are to plant seeds. But
Absolutely.
there's enough of us out there that that we can keep watering those seeds every time we share our accommodations, the needs, share our experience, share our perspectives, share our lives, and it's that seed can turn into a sea of change.
Well said. Well said. Before we conclude our live, Maddie, did you have any announcements that you wanted to share with our friends on the live? Things,
No.
upcoming projects, things that you're doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm getting involved in my main focus. Well, there's okay, so I'm autistic. I'm an autistic advocate. I'm a parent of 5 kids, of which 4 are also autistic. So I'm very much involved uh, in things revolving around autism. And what I'm finding right now is researchers are really beginning to look for autistics to be involved in their projects during the beginning and not just at the end. Not just as subjects, but as co-equal partners in research. And it's really cool to be asked, either sometimes just be asked uh, the wording of documents, but sometimes just here's the project, here's what we're doing, what are your thoughts, how can we reach people, how will this help? And it's not just me, there's other autistics being asked too. So it's been a really neat couple days where a bunch of these things have been coming to me. And I honestly, anytime I have an opportunity to share my experience, my kids' experience, but also the autistic and disability perspective, it's great. My role as director of policy for the Ontario Disability Coalition. You know, I think this year is really going to be a year of really fermenting policy, but putting policy into practice and putting policy and practice and advocacy um, to change. It's been I've loved seeing what the Ontario Disability Coalition has done these past few years. I think last year was a really successful year in terms of presence and policy and change. And I working with you, I really hope that we're going to see that continue to develop and grow. because we're
Yeah,
trying
absolutely.
to. The message that we have in this podcast is 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 activated a lot through the work we do with the Ontario Disability Coalition. So
Yeah,
it's it's only the first only the third week of January, but I'm really pumped and excited for this year.
yeah, we've only just begun. You know, Maddie and I got our wheels to the ground, and we're really ready to burn rubber.
We really are.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, and guys, the TV show is coming back on Cable 14. I'm taping my first episode of season 4 on Thursday. No spoilers, but we will have a tribute to David Onley on the show. And you know the work that we do with Sherry and the Ontario Disability Coalition. Just absolutely grateful for, and absolutely grateful for you, Maddie. Absolutely grateful for our continued allyship together. We are going to be taping a brand new edition of Above and Beyond the Accessibility and Inclusion podcast Wednesday night. I have to get all the podcast and the TV kind of like don't mix those up, but we will work on that. But
Yes.
there's, like I said, there's so much going on, guys. I'm excited. I'm over the moon. We've got speaking events happening, stuff with the Rick Hansen Foundation, stuff with McMaster University is coming up in February. And hey, February is my birthday month because you know why not? I turn. So yeah, guys.
Shy away from your age. Own it.
What's that?
I'm 47.
Yeah.
It's don't shy away from your age. Own it. Whatever age you are, own it. Which I did not
I
do
will
as a
be 43.
teenager. People thought I was way older. It's like I'm happy to let them think I'm way older because the moment they think I'm my age, it's like expectations go down.
Okay, I'll be 43 next month.
Woohoo!
43.
That's awesome. It's not 50, so it's all good. I have to worry about 50 before you do.
Ask me next month. We'll have another conversation next month about it.
All right.
Well, Maddie, this has been. I don't want to say this live has been fun, given the.
It's been good. It's been good.
It's been great to reflect on memories of Lieutenant Governor General David Onley. Impact on you, impact on me, impact on the community at large. And Godspeed, Lieutenant Governor David Onley. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Oh, folks, don't forget to follow us on social media at Matt J. Dever on Twitter, at Anthony_Frazina on Twitter, at Above and Beyond Pod on Facebook, at Above Beyond For You on Twitter. Send us an email. Let us know what you think. We really do appreciate the feedback from our audiences at Above and Beyond the Podcast at gmail.com. Facebook Lives every Monday. New episodes are taped every Wednesday. And thank you so much for your support. And I promise we will try not to have any technical difficulties next week on our live.
Yes, it was our 13th. Our 13th live ended badly. After we had to just slay it after 11 minutes, but we came back and we had a really good chat, so it's all good. I look forward to our 15th live next week.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Take care.